What's going on, everybody? It's the Bulls Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a little bit of a creative type video for the Chicago Bulls as we discuss probably a big issue that the Chicago Bulls are facing right now, and that issue is, are the Chicago Bulls just a little bit too predictable at this point in time? At the end of the day, we've had a very difficult March stretch, a stretch that I think has really put a lot of, dampers on the Chicago Bulls mood at the moment, and that question is beginning to be asked by me personally, and I'm sure there are many other people around the Chicago Bulls, the fan base of the Bulls, that probably will be beginning to be asked the same question. And also, is being predictable a bad thing? We're going to be talking all about that in this video, but before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bulls Show, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls and whether or not they are too predictable at this point in time. And also, is it a bad thing to be predictable? I haven't done these types of videos for a long time because at the end of the day, the past couple of months, pretty much the month of February, the month of March, has all been about injuries for the Chicago Bulls, whether it's short-term injuries, long-term injuries, upsetting times, even some positive injury news as well. There's not many times that I've been talking about the Chicago Bulls as a whole at the moment. So let's talk about that predictability, ladies and gentlemen. I guess the first question is it a bad thing to be predictable? And the answer is, I don't think it's a bad thing to be predictable if you're good enough to the point where being predictable still doesn't stop the outcome of games. For example, you look at the Golden State Warriors team. Obviously, that team is well known for their way that they play, but they have so many diverse ways of scoring, as you can see. But it was very predictable in what they were going to do. They were going to shoot up a lot of threes. They were going to make sure they run plays to get their shooters open. And even if it was predictable, no one could stop that Golden State Warriors team outside of a select few amount of teams that did end up beating them. So it was very, very hard to stop that Golden State Warriors team. And being predictable in that instance is not a bad thing whatsoever, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how predictable you are. Some teams simply don't have the players to stop a team like the Golden State Warriors, what they were, and some teams simply just couldn't stop it in general, and that's why they won the championships that they did, and the system that they ran was simply unstoppable, whether you predicted what they were going to do or not. So I don't think predictability is a bad thing. I think many people will see this video as a negative as to what I'm going to say next, but it's not just being predictable, it's being too good to the point where even if you are predictable, things just simply will be too easy for the Chicago Bulls. If you can stop it or if you can't stop it, it's going to take a hell of a lot out of you. And I feel like for a lot of teams, if you're good enough to be predictable, then you can often get away with being predictable. Now let's turn to, are the Chicago Bulls predictable at this point in time? I think the clear answer to this is yes, but obviously this version of the Chicago Bulls is predictable. We haven't seen a whole lot of the Chicago Bulls with Patrick Williams in the lineup, and Lonzo Ball in the lineup, and Alex Caruso in the lineup. All of these guys that are recently and soon coming back for the Chicago Bulls. We haven't seen that team fully develop and fully form and fully get that chemistry together for them to be predictable. So at this point in time, we've seen Ayo and Zach and DeMar, Vucevic, Javonte Green, and then off the bench, you got Kobe White, Derek Jones Jr., even now Tristan Thompson. I think that team has become predictable because at the end of the day, we know exactly what this team is going to do. I talked about hero ball, I talked about isolation, and those things are really big problems for the Chicago Bulls just by the volume of how we use that isolation and use that hero ball. We use it way too often, and it does create hindrances and it does create problems, but most importantly, it creates predictability. And this version of the Chicago Bulls is not good enough to be predictable, which is why in my last game against the Utah Jazz, I was talking about trying to make easier plays for some of your guys like Zach LaVine, like DeMar DeRozan, but even other guys like Caruso and Javonte, someone that's willing to make an open cut, some screens to get Zach LaVine open for three instead of him trying to take step back threes in an isolation type battle. Maybe even try to get an open corner three for Zach LaVine, entering the ball in DeMar DeRozan in the post and Vucevic in the post. post. Some of the easier plays that the Chicago Bulls can pull off to get easy buckets, and I don't feel we do enough of that as a team. So we lead to the isolation, we lead to the hero ball, we lead to DeMar and Zach running the point or taking the ball up the court and trying to create for themselves more than trying to create for others. And at the end of the day, it does create that predictability, and teams will find that very much easier to defend compared to when we move the ball, we make teammates, we make other teams scramble on defense, trying to fill up every single position, trying to prevent a corner three, trying to prevent a three from the top. All of these situations, a stagnant offense, a predictable offense is something that's been bothering the Chicago Bulls, in my opinion, for the past number of games, but it's really been shown in the Utah game, the Sacramento game. I would even go as far to say the Cleveland game, despite us winning that game. So all of those things considered, you have to assume that the Chicago Bulls are becoming rather predictable, and the predictability for the Chicago Bulls is fine if they were good enough to pull it off against good teams and against bad teams. But at the moment, we don't seem to be pulling it off anywhere near as much as we were when we were probably less predictable in the month of February. I guess the example is, again, I don't really need to compare it because at the end of the day, it's almost uncomparable the months that DeMar DeRozan has had from March to February. But if you look at those 2 months, obviously February's been a historic month for DeMar DeRozan. He had an unbelievably high scoring month, and he won. It was a historic month for DeMar DeRozan, one of the best months in NBA history from a player, and the Chicago Bulls player did that in DeMar DeRozan. But even if you don't want to compare the month of February, what about the month of December as well, when we were pretty much less predictable, we had a little bit more guys in the team, and DeMar DeRozan was still killing the game for the Chicago Bulls. High efficiency, 30-point bet games on a constant basis, him and Zach LaVine rolling together. This team was less predictable at that time, and it shows in those performances. But same as February. February was an unbelievable month, and we were less predictable, but also we had a lot of players really killing the game for the Chicago Bulls. You look into the month of March, DeMar DeRozan has been struggling, and I think a lot of it comes down to him, of course, and just him trying to shoot himself out of situations. And I think eventually you're going to see DeMar DeRozan have a great night because he's had an MVP caliber season. And if you're relying on DeMar DeRozan to be that MVP caliber player, then at the end of the day, you're going to see DeMar DeRozan build his way out of this. I have full confidence that he's going to build his way out of this. But if you're looking at the recent March stretch, he's not had a great March stretch, and there are many reasons as to why that's happened. One, I think a lot of teams have tried to figure out game plans to slow down DeMar DeRozan, and the recent teams have found success in doing that. The way the Sacramento Kings played DeMar DeRozan, in my opinion, was sensational. They played a really great game on DeMar, and they did really good things, and it slowed down DeMar DeRozan. I think the game against Utah was just a slow night for DeMar in its entirety. He did have a better game compared to the Kings, but again, that was more Zach LaVine's night than DeMar DeRozan's. And then you look at other games like Cleveland, he struggled in that game as well. He has been struggling recently, and teams have put game plans in place to slow down DeMar DeRozan to prevent him from taking shots against other teams and stuff of that nature. So the predictability and the game plans are being formed for the Chicago Bulls. I guess that's the best way I can put it. You compare DeMar DeRozan's months between March, February, December, these types of months where DeMar's had great months and obviously struggled in this month of March. And it shows that predictability. It shows the game plans that other teams have for the Chicago Bulls. And it shows that teams are reading the scouting report. And in order for us to do the same, we have to try and read our scouting report against other teams to try and find their predictabilities and their weaknesses as well. But we're not good enough as a team at the moment to be too predictable like that. So the Chicago Bulls have to make some changes when it comes to coaching adjustments, when it comes to making easier plays, when it comes to just not using isolation as much. I think these are all important things to limit that predictability and to get teams off guard. And I think we can catch a couple of teams caught by surprise if we do go away from isolation a little bit and we give DeMar DeRozan some off-ball opportunities to shoot a mid-range or shoot a three or cut to the basket. Same with Zach LaVine, same with Vucevic, a bunch of other guys. But we're not predictable in the sense of, again, we haven't seen this team fully healthy since the beginning of the season. So if you're looking for, I guess, the positive of this video is that, yes, we're predictable at this current form of the Chicago Bulls team now, but we won't be predictable when Patrick Williams returns. We won't be predictable when Lonzo Ball returns, the big one, because he has our starting point guard and he's going to have responsibility. So these things will make us less predictable as a team. These things will be catching teams caught by surprise. And if we're looking for a playoff series, I think a lot of teams from that first round, whoever we face in that first round, will find it difficult to scout the Chicago Bulls as much as they would like, because we do have a lot of key players that are coming in, key players that will be going to the bench, and a whole different lineup, a whole different situation that teams don't want to face the Chicago Bulls in the first round because of that. It's not easy to make a game plan for the Chicago Bulls when Lonzo Ball is going to return by that playoffs. Same with Patrick Williams coming off of that bench. It changes everything for the Chicago Bulls, in my opinion. It makes strong guys like come off of the bench and hopefully contribute with that strong capabilities in that bench unit, making our bench a bit stronger. It brings a 40% shooter in Lonzo Ball into the starting lineup, and all of a sudden, those poor three-point nights that we're having won't be as poor anymore, because you've got a reliable three-point shooter in Lonzo Ball in the corners or up the top, or even just creating his own three-point shot, ready to shoot the ball and hopefully shoot it with efficiency. It brings a diversity in our scoring. It brings Nikola Vucevic in the post again. When you see three-point shooters available, Vucevic in the post will be a much better opportunity, because they're going to have to double Vucevic, and then you got more three-point shooters available. And then things like that would clear up Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan's game if they want to use that isolation play a little bit more. The teammates around Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are the reason for their success. And when you see weaknesses or you see injuries to the Chicago Bulls team, it affects them more than it affects any other player on the team. It affects DeMar DeRozan more than it affects Javonte Green, because Javonte Green is always going to get those corner shots, but DeMar DeRozan is going to have his mid-range game stopped because there are certain other guys on this team that are out, and they try to limit and take away the best available chance of trying to let DeMar or Zach LaVine score, and other guys won't make them pay. So again, we're predictable right now. That's the answer. But when Lonzo Ball and Patrick Williams return, I don't think we're going to be anywhere near as predictable when they come back. That doesn't mean I'm saying we're going to win a bunch of games. We're going to go win on a championship. I think this stretch of form is really, I guess, not necessarily a lesson, but it's a warning sign for the Chicago Bulls that even returning players won't be able to solve everything. That's a lesson that needs to be learned. You won't be able to fix every single issue with two players returning for the Chicago Bulls. But the mindset, the attitude, and the predictability does need to change if we're going to start winning some of these games in March, because we do have more tough games after the Phoenix Suns. It's not going to be an easy ride, and I don't want to see us fall any lower than what we currently have. I'll take 5th spot, to be honest, with the Chicago Bulls right now. But I'd like to build ourselves up to 2nd or 3rd in the Eastern Conference, because we've worked so hard to get there from the beginning of the season. And to see it getting lost now, it's very upsetting, and it's a bit demoralizing in many ways. So hopefully the Bulls can get back to those spots, but I'll end this video here regardless. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in another Chicago Bulls video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care.